Welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is a continuation of our Lenten program, Lamentation and Celebration. And today, each one of these, we're beginning with a video that's from the work of the people. And this is a kind of a resource of videos of people talking about faith, theology, scripture, all kinds of things. So today, Walter Brueggemann is the person that we'll be hearing in the video. He is an Old Testament scholar known for his work in the Psalms and with the prophets particularly. And he's written over 100 books. He's worked at Columbia Theological Seminary and Eden Theological Seminary. And now he's, how do you say that word? Emeritus, both of those. So the topic of today is naming our losses. And so we'll hear from Brueggemann, and then we're going to also include a ritual for the last 15 minutes of our time. So we'll have about 45 minutes to discuss. So we can go ahead and start the video.
It came to my mind is the place in Matthew where Jesus says to the religious leaders of his society that they're all like mausoleums, they're all white sepulchres. So what he does is to take the tombstone as a metaphor for people that have shut down reality and have no energy and have no imagination. So I suppose a cemetery is a good place to talk about the imagination of death and the imagination of life. And if you draw that to our moment in society about the economy having collapsed and about Barack Obama's audacious hope, you could entertain the thought that we are at a life and death moment in our society, and all kinds of people and all kinds of institutions are having to decide whether they're going to continue the patterns of death to which our society has subscribed, or whether we're going to have the energy and the imagination to break out of those patterns and come alive. So I think the Bible is this field of imagination in which they're constantly watching people rise up to newness. And one of the narrative images for that is this little baby that was born to Abraham and Sarah, and the text says, and they were as good as dead, which I suppose means Abraham couldn't have an erection and she wasn't ovulating anymore, and they were as good as dead, and a baby came and life started over. And I think we live in a society where people are now deciding, many people are deciding, we're not going to settle for the old patterns of death and despair and denial, but we're going to dance and sing, and we're going to practice neighborliness. So I think the Bible often imagines that we are in an either-or moment. And I think this is really one of them for churches and church people, and it's nice to be talking about this in the season of Lent, because Lent is getting all set to die and then to be raised. And if you're in denial, you can't get ready to die, and you can't be raised. Both the Old Testament and the New Testament are clear that you have to go into the abyss. And in the Christian tradition, Good Friday is the abyss. Jürgen Moltmann said on Good Friday that the Son is Father forsaken and the Father is Son forsaken, and everybody is forsaken. And you can tell that we don't want to go there because by and large, very few people go to church on Good Friday. A lot of people go to church on Easter Sunday, but you can't have a Sunday without the Friday. And I think the circumstance now, the economic circumstance of our society, the failure of our social institutions, Friday is the way to name what's happening to us. We are really in a shutdown of the way it used to be. And one of the things that's clear in the New Testament when you read the Good Friday narrative is that neither Herod nor Pilate had a clue about what to do. And I think we live in a time when the old rulers of this age haven't a clue what to do about anything, which means it's time to die and be raised. That's what I think.
And says, we're at a life and death moment in our society. I mean, of course, he mentions Barack Obama. He's talking a few years ago, but I think that is accurate. I wonder if that reflects your experience.
I was certainly more optimistic about the world when Barack Obama was elected president during his administration, at least some aspects of it. And, yeah, I think when you were talking about the war in Gaza, just
Do you speak up a little bit?
oh, I'm
more?
sorry, yeah. So I was just saying I was a little more optimistic when Barack Obama was elected president. And thought we maybe gotten rid of some of our racial tensions, and, but
Really
a lot
are
has
back
changed,
on the
and the war in Gaza, and just what's happening.
The what?
The women tension, taking us back to way before even I was born.
Yeah,
I know, really,
You know,
seriously, yeah.
women become a vessel for white men and I guess embryos maybe, and that's all we are if we're on into this.
Yeah, one good sign was awarding the woman who prosecuted Trump $3 million for his defamation of character. Oh, a breath of fresh air. But I think overall, it really is horrifying what's going on, and in so many ways, and around the world, it's horrifying as well. So much war and death and killing of children, and yeah, starvation, climate issues. Yeah.
Takes a toll, doesn't it? Just imagine those days when you lived on the farm and all you really knew was that your neighbor farmer cow had a calf and that the other neighbor farmer was planting his crops and you were going to go over and help him. I mean, we have so much information, good, bad, and ugly, and we take it in. It's hard.
In one way, though, I was thinking about, I don't know why, but it came into my head the other day that the estrangement of people who fought for this country is lessening, because it used to be that, like you say, we didn't know anything more than beyond our neighbors' cows and calves being born, and soldiers would go out and fight and they'd see all this other stuff and come back and not be able to tell anybody about it. And now at least we're kind of on the same page with the folks who are fighting in the world. So it's gathered us, I think, in a different way, and that at least is to the good.
We have the opportunity now, should we have the courage to pick it up and look at it, to recognize our own complicity in all of it.
Yeah.
Which always went on, but we didn't know.
Yeah.
Now we can't say we don't.
Now we can't say we don't know. Yeah.
This is pretty poignant topic for us. I think we have been for the last 4 months living on the land down in the sacred place for the Apaches, and And, you know, we don't have the we haven't had the conveniences. We haven't had a microwave. We haven't had a TV. We catch our news here and there by just checking our phones. We've had some internet service down there. And all of that to protect sacred land from a copper mine, which doesn't really care, and they're telling lies about how light they'll be on Earth, but we know that they're going to devastate it. And meanwhile, one of our crew team members comes and goes in a electric car, using lots of copper, and so it's this big conundrum because we need. We're in a place where we need to continue with, and you know, these conveniences are given, you know, and we're looking for the electric cars and modern things to be our salvation, and we have to also recognize that some of the things, maybe some other conveniences, have got to die for this resurrection of the new thing. So this is a very interesting topic for me right now, for sure. And then we saw this community. We have just this last weekend. It's just out in the open land, you know. It's in the mountains of the high desert, you know, and at 4,000 feet where we were, and they had this celebration ceremony, and they all of a sudden the people came in and they laid out this food and anything for that weekend, anything anybody needed. We didn't have to worry about cooking at all or making our coffee or whatever. Everything was there. And so they have this community vision like we had on the farm back in the day. You know, your neighbor, if you needed something, your neighbor had it. And you share it that way, you know. And they just all came in community. So there's still that going on there that is maybe part of, hopefully will be within the resurrection that he talks about too.
Some would say that we live in a resurrection culture, that many of us will deny the death part of it. You know, and Brueggemann was hinting to that, in that not many people attend a Good Friday service, but many more attend an Easter service. Have you had an experience where you've ever attempted to rush towards resurrection without allowing the time for mourning and death?
Short answer is all the time. I can't think of a particular story. Yeah, I think I find it hard to slow down for my grief and my loss and for the death part of things. It takes some work, it takes some conscience, some awareness, I think. Yeah.
I grew up as a military dependent. And what I realized when I started to learn to lose consciously was that I had not been taught to grieve each move, right? I was already on to the next place. Let's create my new life. I'm really good at that. But every little loss was still with me.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah. Leaving friends behind, just okay, they aren't anymore, and on to the next new place.
Part of the reason we're here earlier than we were going to be is because there was Janie's family had a loss, and we just went to a celebration of life for Janie's niece. And I was sort of the mindset that, well, we'll come in and we'll go to the thing, and you know, then we'll move on, whatever. But we came in early, and we wound up connecting with the mom of the girl that passed, and what a blessing it was to just have time with her, because we wound up spending some time, having some coffee, having some breakfast, went and did some other things, came back with her, and so during that time frame, stories got to come out. you know, and so including the Good Friday with Easter, the whole story gets to come out, and people get to share how they're feeling about each stage. And so that was a valuable time. And we had been sort of estranged from her sister as well, just because differences in just differences, and we had been a little bit estranged, and so that sort of brought the family a little closer together as well.
I guess Good Friday can be a thin time because the Good Friday of her death and the loss of personally my setting an ego aside, because that's part of the problem. So the death to that made it a real joy to not take things personally, and that just took us out of the whole thing, you know. So some deaths can be quite a relief and a wonderful thing. And also just the circumstances of the death and how many people this person touched. It's still connecting us, bringing us together. That's part of the gift of those terrible Good Fridays. Maybe that's the good part of it. I was like, what's good about it? There can be gift in that as well.
The question I get a lot is, why do we call Good Friday good? So you kind of alluded to that in that story of your niece's death. I wonder if others have experiences that they would be willing to share of a grief or a death that has emerged and brought something else to life.
My mother's death was very much that. She died of, she was 90, and she died of cardio insufficiency. So she had diabetes, but basically the heart couldn't keep up with the lungs. And so she basically drowned, you know, slowly. And she was an RN, so she knew. And so she was on oxygen, but very much at peace. Totally ready. Sometimes she'd get up in the morning and go, can we just get this going? I'm ready. Oh, she said that 20 times. I'm ready. Okie dokie. What are you waiting for? But it was beautiful. And I have no fear of death. I mean, I just don't. I never have. And she didn't either. She was ready. So it was beautiful, and it was slow. I was still working, teaching, and I remember telling the secretary, my mother is dying a few inches every day. I mean, it was that slow.
Yeah.
But it was beautiful. It really was. It was very sweet, very spiritual. And she died on Valentine's Day. And her father died on Valentine's Day. I tell Yvonne to beware. Watch out for Valentine's Day.
Good for
And some people are really fearful of death. I mean, yeah, Yvonne's father, that anything that had the dead or death word in it, he was just petrified.
And I don't think he's unique.
No.
I've had a lot of experiences in praying with people who are dying and then having kind of a threshold experience. One I remember was a friend of mine who was very active in the Diocese of Wyoming, and her husband was ill, and she was his caregiver, and she got cancer and wound up actually dying before he did. But I called her, she called me, that's right. She called me up one day, and she was actively dying, and so we had this conversation. There was a lot of silences, and then, you know, a few words here and there, and finally she just kind of petered out. She had wanted me to do a banner for her celebration of life, and so that was why she called, and just petered out. And then somebody came and hung up the phone. You know, it was like that was that, and that was the last I talked to her. But on the night she died, I had this dream that she was dancing. She had a rose in her teeth and she was dancing. And I came to find out that she had been a dancer, a flamenco dancer when she was here. I didn't know that
That's
before,
cool.
so, yeah.
Mhm.
I hope you write down all your dreams.
Yes, you're a good dreamer.
Mhm.
You're quite a dreamer. So
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
you do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Shauna, my oldest daughter, came from Mexico to be with my mother during the day because my dad was there too, but they were both pretty elderly. And I was still working, so she flew in from Mexico and she was the first grandchild, so she was precious. And they were both Catholics, so we did we were Marian Catholics. They were both Marian Catholics. Well, my daughter. So we did that Marian Rosary every night. And she died during our rosary. We didn't know it for sure, but she literally died during the rosary of the last on Valentine's Day.
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought she had gone to sleep, but come to find out, a few hours later, she'd never moved. And so I just, she just go to sleep.
Mhm.
It was pretty. And I'm sure she felt very consoled. I mean, two of her favorite people were there, myself and my oldest daughter, and saying her prayers. And so I think she was okie dokie.
When we were down there this weekend, Jamie's daughter said she came from Honolulu for the celebration of life, and people kind of came from all over, and she reminded what a blessing it is to be together, to grieve together during that time, instead of in which it wasn't really a grief, but the grief occurred in the midst of the celebration, and and it made me think of it when my folks passed and when my grandparents, a lot of them passed. I've been away because I was stationed away. I was living way on the other side of the country. I wanted to be there for my dad's passing when it became clear that he was going, but an ice storm hit Dallas and I was in Texas and I couldn't get back up to New York State. I couldn't fly in. So I have to figure out a way to grieve by myself, or Janie helping me or whatever. Just a little different that way too.
Is there anyone online that would like to speak to one of these questions, or I want to certainly make space for you?
Thank you, Felicia. It's hard. There's so many thoughts going through my mind, of Doug's death, my husband, of what that was like. But I was very profoundly impacted by the statement of Mr. Brueggemann at the end, in which he said, "Our leaders don't have a clue what to do." And of course, that was several years ago, but I feel it's true now. And he said, "It is now time to die and be raised." And as we face another election, I just wonder how this is going to play out, what roles we can each play to be a part of that dying, but also to be a moving force in the raising up process, and how we can do that together, as a community, as individuals. It just really hit me this morning when he said that, the rising and dying, that just had the dying and rising, that just has to happen in our country, in our political system, for people to survive, for democracy to survive. So that's kind of where my mind has been settled. It's off topic, but that's where I was.
Thank you. Not
Yes.
off topic at all, exactly.
I
Yeah.
was thinking something similar when he said that, because he was talking about Pilate and Herod not having a clue, and I was thinking about our polarization in this country and how there's this big flail because everybody doesn't know what to do. So everybody's trying to latch on to the way it was before,
Right.
and then not allow for anything,
Right.
and that creates this intense polarization that we're doing, instead of just letting it go. being willing to let more of it go, like it's not going to be the way it was. So what could it be? You know, it's like not part of the conversation a lot of times. It's like,
Mhm.
we want to get back to, you know, and I hear it, even though I'm extremely liberal, like I hear it in that as well. Like, you know, it should have, the way it was before was, you know, the way it should have been, and the way it is now is wrong, you know, and we do that, we're kind of doing the same thing on both sides of that political fence, you know.
Well, that's part of rushing to resurrection, I think. We don't ever much get a chance to grieve publicly about what's gone away. And that really is hard, I think, for people. And so then the reaction comes and well, I want it to be like this, and that was really the best way, you know, and they probably didn't even really fully believe it themselves that that was the best way. Looks like Charlotte has undarkened herself, yeah.
Well, yes, but I don't have anything to add at the moment.
Okay.
I'm with all of you in what you're saying.
Hmm.
I remember, oh,
Well, we were super divided during Civil War. Our country was probably as divided as it is now. But I'm not enough of a historian to know how we got through that, how we turned that around. Does anyone know?
Yeah, I know.
I don't think
it
we
wasn't
did.
really very, I don't think we did a good job of that at all. Yeah.
When the Kent State murders happened, half the country was in favor of the National Guard and half the other way. So
Yeah.
I think we've always been really divided.
Yeah.
But the powerful can lord it over the unpowerful, and then we go on like everything's great.
We put a lot of focus, I think, I'm not an historian either, but it seemed to me from what I've gleaned over the years is we put a lot of focus on the Reconstruction as a positive thing. And it was for a small amount of people, but it was still hurting other people. And that's what I kind of see that now. I see one political party, it seems like they're trying to rush us to death, you know, to rush us into it. Maybe because they believe so strongly in resurrection and this whole new world or something, you know, and another party is kind of, a lot of people understand it's happening, but political leaders are like ignoring it, you know, or denying it. And then just a lot of people who don't seem to have an opinion, and they just, you know, rushing to the edge of the water to dive in, you know, and they just aren't clear. They don't understand that the climate is climate chaos and the climate is dying. So they just power on and enjoy life.
Yeah, they just
They
do.
would, yeah.
I wonder, one of the things, I think you said it, Lori, with regard to not grieving, and how it plays a part of this process that we're in. You know, when COVID hit, a lot of the clergy were talking about people that died during COVID, but were not able to gather for memorial services. And we tried to do some online, and some were done pretty well, but there's this collective grief that we experienced. And when we don't grieve it, how does that affect us? How does that impact where we are today?
Martin and I are allied members of Jewish Voice for Peace. And without our collective rage, outrage, horror, deep grief, every day we get together online with 700 members of JVP. And it's being done in their name. Genocide is actively being done in the name of Jewish people. And our country is actively aiding it. So without that, I don't know where I would be. But with the collective grief and action that comes out of that, and the community of people who are deeply affected that are grieving together, very powerful and very healing. Even though it's not better, the mutual grieving is very powerful. And something that I have felt from all that is that as hard as it is, and it's probably the hardest thing ever, somehow it might just be possible that we are all, even though all of our leaders are clueless, we are all birthing the new world from the vision that we all hold. So it's possible that we are birthing something new.
These are the birth pains, I
Yeah,
guess.
maybe.
I don't know.
All the time.
Yeah.
And next week, we're gonna dive into some work that I think will really speak to you on that point, Jamie. Exactly that. Like, it just looks like everything is horrible, and I feel like without this collective meeting like you're doing, and all of the little bits that are happening at our ritual later today, then we are just building on top of, no foundation or broken foundation, right? But if we allow ourselves to go into that pain, that's
That's
that's compost, right? That's the new life.
Lent is often a time when we prepare to die. It says 40 days and mirroring Jesus's experience, or thinking and praying through that. How do we prepare? How do we prepare to die?
I picked up in the foyer here, some of the books that people have laid out, and before we went to flat, I picked up a book there, called Learning to Walk in the Dark by, what is it, Barbara
Brown Taylor.
Taylor Brown.
And so it was perfect, because there we were at Oak Flat, and typically, you get up in the dark, and it's, the longer nights, and you get up in the dark to go to the vault toilet, to take care of business, or you go to prepare coffee in the morning or cook breakfast or whatever. It's dark. And so I was reading that and learning literally to walk in the dark. I turned off my headlamp and walked. And I found out that that so many times we make it sound like, she talks about this, about dark as being bad, and we have all these things we say that dark is bad. But in that instance, if I was walking in the dark and practicing and using the starlight and the moonlight a little bit, and the reflection of the earth and feeling the earth as I walked on it, then invariably a car would drive through camp, and then light was bad. Light was the enemy. Dark was good and welcoming. Dark was welcoming, and light became so exact opposite of that. So I forget the exact question, but that alluded to that. That made me think of that.
It was just, how do we prepare to die?
Oh yeah. So we're preparing by walking more, and then sometimes help comes that maybe makes us live a little bit longer, and maybe we don't want that. Maybe we just want to walk in the dark to the next place.
Well, didn't you say Eckhart Tolle said, this is the dying?
The new is already here. The old is just making a lot of noise, dying.
Yes. I like that. I like that. Say it again.
The new is already here. The old is making a lot of noise, dying.
Right.
Our Dottie Roy has a beautiful poem, but the end of it is, on a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. The new world.
The new world, on a quiet day, I can hear her breathing.
She's saying the same thing.
I think for me, what keeps me out of that recognition is just going back to the denial part, right? Any place that I haven't, where I'm denying the grief or the loss or the other thing and trying to jump forward is actually keeping me from experiencing the forward piece. I was thinking from the very beginning, first question, I had this time where I was exited really hard from a community that I was super involved with, and didn't even wasn't able to even pause and really digest that. And so I wound up in a situation very involved in something else that I would prefer to have not been involved in as time evolved, right? And it just took me like years to kind of wake up and go, wait a minute, what am I doing? You know, and it was really, I look back on it, it's really from denying the grief, you know, of the previous time is what just kept me blinded into something, you know, just walking forward in a blind way, you know, without being able to digest things. Yeah.
When I don't acknowledge my grief, I can get really nasty to people.
It comes out a little sideways.
Sideways.
Sideshow now.
Yeah, it's like, oh dear. And sometimes that's how I notice though, that I have grief work to do, is that it's like, oh boy, I didn't treat those people very well. What's going on, you know? And the realization then comes.
Terry, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, it's amazing how we protect ourselves. And the danger in doing that is life continues on. But often that place that you were supposed to stop and grieve and take in information, love, is passed over. And so later on, the kidney stone, whatever, evolves. And you don't know where, you don't know why this is happening to you. So it often takes a person going back, recalling stories, recalling the hard parts of the stories, to suddenly be released from that place where information is given, so you can then move on.
Yeah, how do we prepare to die? And yeah, I appreciated you saying you notice when you get snippy or short that, oh, something's going on. It brings it to the conscious level that, oh, maybe I need to do some grief work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, Laura, your sermon today was so helpful. Reminder for me. How do we prepare to die? For me, it's just self-emptying all the time. But it's, you know, I learned it in these very big ways. And I think my muscles for the big things, because of my illness, I have those. But it's the little tiny ones, right? My day I had my day planned.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my goodness, I know that so well.
Yeah, exactly.
Then how do I die to that, to my little plan?
Or the driver in front of you.
Oh, geez.
My day plan, yeah.
Yeah.
They're that way too, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's really true. Or the pausing to listen to somebody when you're like, you know.
I've got so much to do.
You should know my list. Yeah.
Well, if you think of it like that, we are preparing. Every minute is a preparation. Is it gonna be a pretty well done preparation, or what are we gonna learn to do better?
And it's bringing it to consciousness.
Yeah.
That's the trick, isn't it? How do we bring that to conscious minds?
There's this sleep aid I use, it's wonderful woman who tells stories. It's probably only thing to listen to stories with a really certain kind of voice, and we can fall asleep. And I love this woman, she's a yoga teacher. And often she'll say before she goes into the story, she says, whatever you did today, it's enough. And so I think every night when we go to bed, we have that chance to say, of course, we never finish for a day what we want to do, but for a lifetime, it's the same too. So every night when I go to bed, can I say, it's not what I dreamed, but it's enough. And so if I do that every day, can I do that at the end?
I do that too. I think, oh, I didn't get this done. And then I had an uncle who was an Episcopal priest, and he kept telling me, you know, and he was doing some counseling, go back on your day and see what you accomplished. And it was enough. And that really helped.
Yeah, that's
Helps.
actually an ancient spiritual tradition.
Saint
Yeah.
Ignatius.
Yeah, Saint Ignatius.
It reminds me of forgiving ourselves. If it wasn't enough, it might not have been, and that's okay. Good reminder.
I like to focus on the joy of it. So when I go to bed and try to go to sleep, I'm like, what gave me joy today?
So maybe that's your practice for death too, maybe on your deathbed.
Mm.
You know, and that's the thing, I think the practice, what I've seen with so many people who are dying, and they might want to change, you know, but often if we're dying a protracted death, it means that we're ill. There's not a lot of energy to change our patterns, right? So I think that's why every wisdom tradition says practice now.
Yeah.
Whatever our practice is, the joy or the release, whatever it is, practice now.
Practice, right? That's what Lent is about,
Right.
too, is practice.
Joe, were you gonna say
And
something?
it's reminding me something that's been an unconscious process. At 20, I was given a death sentence. Obviously, they were wrong because I'm still here. But I was bargaining with God at night and thinking, please just give me a chance to feel like I have contributed something. And so that my plan for death has been the life plan to lead me until I have done everything that I can contribute. And then I can quietly slip away.
And who would really want to live forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever? No, you know, I mean, how many generations would you really want to precede?
Well, the young think we should live to 200 years, but give them a shot at getting halfway there and see if they still think that.
I was gonna say our daughter.
But she's young, right?
She's
Yeah.
young.
But there's at least stories about how people that's right in every tradition. The person who got to live forever. No.
Wasn't fun.
We're about at that mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me check in. Carol and Charlotte, were you able to gather the items?
Yes,
Carol, yes. Charlotte?
yes.
Perfect. So somebody, if you could help me, we are going to move down there in just a minute to do our ritual, but I want to make sure we always include our friends, Carol and Charlotte. So we are going to name our losses because as what has come out so many times during our discussion, we don't often do this collectively, and sometimes we don't even do it personally. It is very important to witness ourselves and to witness one another, to allow ourselves to be witnessed. So we're going to go into a ritual. It is based on the work of Francis Weller. And if you're at all interested in grief work, especially embodied grief work and connection to the land grief work, he is a phenomenal teacher. I can get you all this text if you want the name and author. So Francis Weller. This is a time for us to name our losses. So in a minute, we're going to go to the end of the room. You can see we set up an altar there, and we'll stand, and we're going to take our friends with us down there. We're going to stand if you're able, if not, pull a chair over. Now walk us through each step, but let me just give you the outline real quick. I'll do an invocation. Then we will very organically, each of us, as you feel called, go pick up a stone and hold it and name something you've lost. In our minds, we've been thinking of loss since the beginning of the pandemic. But if something else arises, obviously, whatever you're feeling loss. And there are plenty of stones, so you can go back again and again. Just name your loss, and then you put, once you're ready to let go of that stone to be witnessed, you speak that, put it in the water, and come back to your place. And again, you can go back and forth. We have several different bowls of water because at the very end, we will walk outside and we'll get different people to carry those, and we will water trees with those. So to remind us that this is compost, right? All of this energy, as we release these things, as we speak them, they will go to feed on the earth and these growing things.
Question.
Yes.
When you pick up the stone, do you say out loud or to
Yes.
yourself?
Out loud. And please don't be alarmed. I'm going to take notes. I'm not taking your names down. I just want to get kind of an outline of our collective losses, because in 2 weeks, Lori will lead us in a creativity ritual that we're going to use exactly these losses as sort of the basis. So please don't think that I'm, noting who said what. I just want to remind us in 2 weeks what we were honoring today. Is that clear? Okay. And like I said, I'll just walk us through it, and questions during ritual are always fun. This is the camera, Carol and Charlotte. As we begin, feel free to light your candle. In lighting this candle, we will invoke God, Mother, Father, lover of our souls. We offer gratitude for this time together, this time to witness one another and our losses, this time to allow ourselves to be witnessed. We welcome the ancestors, all the ancestors of this land. We are blessed to steward for this very short time. We offer ancestors of our bloodlines. We offer ancestors of our spiritual tradition and ancestors of our heart, all the communion of saints. We offer gratitude for your witness to this ritual. We call in the elements: fire, wind, air, water, and earth, the source of all life. We will work with water and earth in particular today to remind us that we come from the earth, and all of our tears will go back to the earth. Amen. So taking a moment, just thinking about allowing your heart to come up with words for a loss that you're feeling. It can be personal and also be collective. And when you're ready, pick up a stone and name that and put it in one of the vessels of water.
Any of the vessels?
Yeah.
I'm going to say time.
I'm going to say the loss of my husband.
Can I put a stone in for Carol?
We can. She has. Carol, do you have one there too?
I did. I said for the loss of my husband.
Right. And do you have your own stone? Well, oh, she did. I see her. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do here too. Let's do that too. I like it.
The loss of a marriage.
The loss of my sister.
The loss of innocence.
Loss of a really great job situation.
Loss of belief that my kiddos will be safe in their healthcare professions.
The loss of beauty. The loss of relationship with my grandchildren.
The loss of Roseanne's able-bodiedness.
I think the loss of the illusion that our country was what I thought it was.
The loss of my sons.
The loss of full physical mobility.
Loss of the trees.
That's Carol's. The loss of my son.
The loss of self.
The loss of youth. The loss of my daughter.
The loss of species and the climate change we're experiencing.
The loss of Monica and Greg's twins.
The loss of Rafit and Hind and 30,000 others and 65,000 others, losses of arms and legs, eyes, the doctor's losses of ability to help, and the parents' grief. The loss of hope that we can live together with joy.
Loss of some degree of comfort with my neighbors.
The loss of Shauna's mental health.
The loss of optimism about the future.
The loss of the Republican Party.
The loss of my family's ancient spiritual practices.
The loss of ancestry.
The loss of courage.
The loss of naivete.
The loss of the golden mean.
Loss of patience with my fellows.
Loss of recognizable seasons.
The loss of the neighborhood and the connectiveness one to another.
Loss of trans, sexual kids, and non-binary kids.
The loss of Nora.
Loss of George Floyd and all the people of color. Our society.
The loss of Brianna and all those young and old who feel they cannot go on in this life.
The loss of decency.
Loss of taking collective responsibility.
Loss of free flowing rivers and wild places.
Loss of faith in my government and leaders.
The loss of wildlife, birds, animals, nature.
The loss of our once excellent medical system.
All of that in our hearts. Knowing that we can't take away the loss, but that witnessing and allowing ourselves to be witnessed does change the world. So next, if I could get 4 different people to carry each one a vessel, and we'll go outside and we'll leave the stones in, just pour the water out. And then Raven and I will take these particular stones to a place of flowing water so that all of the flowing water will combine with the tears of our hearts to bring new life. And Carol and Charlotte, I don't know if you want to, we're going to come back here in just 2 minutes or so. And so I don't know, Carol, if you have a house plan, or Charlotte, and you want to put your water into that, or you can save it for later when you can take it outside. Yeah, whichever you decide, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll come back for a little prayer at the end. And we'll hold it. And everyone's welcome to process with us. We're just gonna go right out.
Yeah, if you go right here, we can catch it on.
Oh, perfect. You can process with us, or you can stay inside, whatever you like. Oh, we want. May all beings be blessed by the time we spent together. May all beings across time and space be blessed by our ability and our willingness to show up for ourselves and one another and love. Amen. Amen.
Amen.